Hello and welcome to Movies You Miss Podcast, episode 17. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to jump into this one. How are you doing, V?
I'm doing great and really happy to mix it up this week from our drug episode to now today's discussing movies centered around kids.
I agree, yes. After last week, I'd taken several showers. I do shower every day, but after listening to our
You
episode,
mean
I
you're
did
not Jake Gyllenhaal or Ashton Kutcher?
No, or Hayden Christensen, apparently, according to
really?
my wife. Yeah, no, I like my showers, but after Requiem and Spun, there was definitely some cleansing needed. So these were good palate cleansers.
Yes, I can confess that I have watched Disney movies almost exclusively over the last week.
Awesome. I've actually been listening to Disney soundtracks in the car. Haven't watched anything too much because I've been pretty busy.
Though.
But it definitely does. Yeah, I've needed some uplifting and
Right.
some bare necessities. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But still, I was so glad that we did our drug cinema episode and we exchanged a lot of that fun information and that we both enjoyed both the movies.
Yes, me too. I definitely think it's an important genre, and there are a lot of good movies in there, and we picked two of them for sure.
Oh yeah. And we're going to pick some more in the future, likely, but they may not be like as intense.
Yeah, give me 6 months.
Yeah, I think my next one is actually at the end of December, early January, so we've got some time.
Perfect. I'm also looking forward to today discussing new movies that you and I have seen.
Yeah, I know. It's been a minute. I finally saw the one that you saw opening weekend.
Yes.
So that's exciting.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Elvis to start.
Elvis, indeed.
Austin Butler is a revelation.
Oh, man. So good.
Give him the Academy Award nomination right now.
I agree. We went to see it at the local drive-in theater, and that was actually quite the experience because we just pulled into the drive-in, popped the back of the car open. I turned my stereo up as loud as I thought it could go. The quality of the projection was great. The sound in the car was awesome, and it did not feel like it was a 3-hour-long movie.
No, it didn't. It's a very good movie, another great Baz Luhrmann film.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly believe that if you're going to do a musical biopic, you better get an actor who can sing.
Oh, yeah.
That's my biggest issue with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody and I have a lot of issues.
Same. I will say took major issue with the fact that Taron Egerton did not get nominated or get the win for his portrayal of Elton John in Rocket Man, which is a far superior movie.
They came out at the same time, too, didn't they?
Yeah, they came out, I think, within like 6 to 8 months of each other. Within the same year, they absolutely came out. So the fact that Taron Egerton did not get the nomination for his portrayal, which he did all of his own singing, the storyline was better because it was more honest. Like, there's so many reasons why I think Rocket Man is such a great movie compared to Bohemian Rhapsody.
I have not seen Rocket Man. It's on my to-watch list still. I do like Elton John, and I've been very curious about that movie because the trailer made it look great. But yeah, the Bohemian Rhapsody really rubbed me the wrong way.
I didn't like the fact that they were not bold enough to be honest about his life and who he was. They really didn't embrace the fact that he had relationships with men and was in a long-term relationship with a man. They did not embrace the fact that he had major drug issues, and it didn't seem like they were bold enough, and that is what I loved about Rocket Man. Elton John, of course, thankfully he's alive, had a lot of consulting on Rocket Man, the movie, and was like, no, you need to tell my real story. You need to show all of the bumps and bruises that I got, and they were really raw about it, and I respect the fact that he was brave enough to be honest.
I like that. I really like that, and I've always found Elton John to be really upfront and open about his entire life, and I know that's another thing that a lot of people weren't a big fan of early on in his career, but it's one I got to watch, and one other reason I think why Bohemian Rhapsody has a sour taste in my mouth is because originally it was Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
And he can sing and he can dance. If he had that thick mustache like Freddie Mercury had with the haircut and everything, there would have been almost mirror image of Freddie Mercury with Sacha Baron Cohen. And I know a lot of people knew the reason why Sacha Baron Cohen bowed out, and it's shitty that he did, but at the same time, he was similar with how Elton John wanted to be portrayed. Sacha Baron Cohen wanted to portray Freddie Mercury correctly, and that's unfortunately did not happen.
That was the creative difference, wasn't it? That he wanted to have a more honest storyline, and the production company and the director was like, no.
Yeah, no, it was
more consumable for mainstream audiences.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Very strange. You know, especially in today's.
Yeah,
world.
I mean, this only came out like 3 or 4 years ago. It was 2018 that it came out.
Yeah.
But getting back to Elvis, which is what we watched. Great movie. We both had a lot of fun watching it. I have issue with one thing in Elvis, though.
I already know what it is.
Because you know me so well.
Indeed.
Tom Hanks was utterly 100% miscast in this movie.
There could have been many other actors to play this role. I agree.
The entire time, all I saw was Tom Hanks in a fat suit doing a terrible accent.
I texted you after, and you asked me how I felt, and I said it didn't bother me. I wasn't there to watch his story, so
he was the narrator, though.
I know he was. I know, but at the same time, I was sucked into the movie right away, and a lot of the stuff that I did not know about Elvis's early on career was that he was very good friends with B.B. King. So that was a lot of really good stuff to throw in there, and I really like that Baz Luhrmann kept his flashiness. He didn't like try and shy away from the fact that this is a Luhrmann picture.
Oh yeah.
And his title cards were fucking awesome. It's just a really bright movie, and that's another thing about Baz Luhrmann is his movies are bright, and this was a bright one. And yeah, Austin Butler fucking killed it.
Yes, he did.
I really felt for Elvis. I mean, my gosh, especially the last hour and a half of the movie. You're really just learning, some of the worst shit that the guy went through, and fuck his father, by the way.
Oh, right? And just, I love the fact that they told the real story about the influence black music and black artists had on Elvis from a very young age. It's not often discussed that Elvis actually, in a lot of ways, even copied. I mean, he actually redid some songs that black musicians had in fact done, produced, released.
Right.
And he redid it and got popular because he was white and this was segregated America. And they didn't shy away from that, which I appreciated. They did gloss over Priscilla a little bit, which is a little problematic. She was 14. Right? Like,
oh yeah, right.
That's a little, they glossed over that a little bit, and we've talked about this in previous movies. His family giving the ultimate blessing to this movie. Having a say, and then watching it saying, this is the closest portrayal to my father or to my ex-husband that I've ever seen, is huge for a biopic and important.
Absolutely.
They gave their blessing, green light, and Austin spent a long time with Priscilla Presley. And
spent 2 years.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because you're telling someone's real life. They deserve to have it told as accurately as possible.
I agree that when we had gotten home, I stayed up for about an hour doing a little bit of reading about it, and read that Austin Butler rented an apartment in Australia after the audition, and he started to immerse himself in everything, and he got the walk down and the voice down. It's fascinating to see on screen. It's fascinating to see done so well, and I, again, was not a very big Elvis fan. I not that I'm like all of a sudden running out and buying all his albums right now, but my wife has a few of them on vinyl, and she's played them since we've been living together. And one thing I thought was interesting about how you're talking about how he had covered a lot of African American music early on in his career.
Right.
There's a movie a few years ago called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Yes,
with
Chadwick.
Viola Davis, and Chadwick Boseman.
Yes.
And his character, he writes a bunch of original music, and he tries very hard to get it recorded with him singing. And all the producer keeps saying is, well, we'll buy the music and we'll have somebody else do it. And we all know that somebody else is going to be a white man doing it.
Exactly.
And that's gonna skyrocket it and make it popular, because if a black man's doing it, it's not going to be. But that wasn't entirely the case with Elvis. Elvis did do that, but he, again, still had that friendship with B.B. King, and B.B. King was encouraging about it.
Yes.
So that was one thing that I thought was fascinating to learn, and I'm a major B.B. King fan. I really liked Kelvin Harris Jr.'s portrayal of B.B. King. I thought he did a fantastic job. And I did like the fact that his father was played by the Duke from Moulin Rouge.
From Moulin Rouge, yes.
Yes.
Richard Roxburgh.
Yes, thank you.
I really like Calvin Harrison as B.B. King as well. I really, really liked Alton Mason as Little Richard. He stole the hell out of that scene.
That was bitchin'. It is definitely a theatrical experience. If it is still playing in your town and you have any interest whatsoever, get your ass to the theater. Make sure you use the restroom first so you don't need to miss anything. The cool thing was we got to bring our own snacks, and I couldn't leave the car. I was just so glued to the screen, and it felt real. It was a surreal experience watching that film.
It was, and I actually am not really a big Elvis fan either. I grew up in a household that played Creedence Clearwater, ZZ Top, and Fleetwood Mac. And so Elvis, the Standards, Frank Sinatra, those were not played in my household. I am familiar with Elvis's music, but I didn't have to be a fan of his music in order to enjoy this movie. And I think that's important for the audience to know.
I agree, definitely.
So I think we should actually just do a musical episode. I'm going to pick Rocket Man, and then you can watch it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool.
There's definitely a few that I could choose from.
Fabulous. Okay, so that's on the list too. And at a nearish future date, we'll have Rocket Man on in the mix.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so now that we've covered that, and as we've discussed, this is a lighter episode. This is a kid-centric episode, and I believe you go first this week.
Yes, I do go first this week.
Awesome. So do you want to kick us off?
I can kick us off. And for those of you that are new to Movies You Missed podcast, welcome. We've been around for several weeks now, and we're having quite a good time doing this. We like to discuss films that we feel kind of flew under the radar, maybe are a little bit forgotten, and films that we feel need revisiting. So thank you for coming in today. This is going to be a fun episode, I think. We both chose films that were done in the UK, so that, oddly enough, kind of works out pretty well for our discussion today. I chose the 2004 Danny Boyle directed, Frank Cottrell Boyce written Millions. This is a very sweet little film. It's a very straightforward story. There's, like any movie, a beginning, middle, and end, but there's no way in this one to get lost. And the interesting thing about it is a Danny Boyle film, and Danny Boyle's known for R-rated material, usually science fiction, horror, or drug cinema, since he's directed my favorite film, Trainspotting, one of my favorite films, excuse me. And this movie stars Alex Attell, James Nesbitt, Daisy Donovan, and another young actor by the name of Lewis McGibbon. And Alex Attell blasted onto the scene with this movie. He is our lead, Damien, and his brother, played by Lewis McGibbon, plays Anthony. These two have unfortunately just lost their mother, and they are relocating out of their house to a different part of town. And their father, you can tell, is also having a little bit of a hard time with having lost his wife. So he's, on his own taking care of these two kids. And Damien is a very eccentric little guy. He is very involved in learning about the saints of the Bible and Christianity and stuff like this. It's not really a Bible pushing type of a film, but there's a lot of use of saints in this film, and I think very cleverly used. He's visited by male and female saints, so that kind of is a fun little tidbit. It's not all male saints, because in all actuality, I've only ever really heard of mostly male saints. So when I saw this movie, there were female saints that he had spoken about and got visited by that I thought were pretty interesting to learn about. The main premise, on top of Damien and Anthony losing their mother, is that Damien's got quite the imagination. He's built this really cool cardboard fort out in the grassy knoll behind where he's just moved to. And at one point or another, a train goes by, and something destroys his box fort. And as he comes out of all the box rubbish, he sees this bag, and this bag opens up, and there is a whole shit ton of money in it. Yeah. And so he thinks that he's hallucinating this whole thing. He thinks maybe God sent him this money. He brings his brother into it, and his brother starts going really interestingly, for the age of his brother, into taxes and how they need to hide it from everybody because people are going to really want all their money. Most, I think, people would have that kind of mindset if you were to find a bag of money. And Anthony's not like, we need to return this or anything like that. He literally is like, we got to spend this money. And we find out one of the reasons why that Anthony wants to spend this money is because very soon the pound is going to be turned into the euro. So there's a lot of interesting uses of the pound and the euro in this movie, and the way that some of the transitions go about with learning how many days are left, I thought were very entertaining because it's like an old banker with like a very young blonde, and it was kind of interesting. And but overall, that's really just kind of the breakdown of the movie. And Damien wants to use his money for good, where Anthony wants to buy things and buy his friends off to not tell anybody. Essentially, start paying his friends to be his posse, and like bringing him his lunch at school and driving him to school on their bikes and stuff like this. So that's in one way, I think both characters, Damien and Anthony, are the embodiment of just about what everybody else would do.
Mm-hmm. Two sides of that for sure.
Yeah, and I really liked that usage. And going back to Damien, he wants to use it to help the poor. And Anthony is very skeptical about his mindset with this, because if Damien asks anybody if they're poor, they say that they kind of are poor. And they don't know why Damien's asking this question, but later on we learn that Damien is trying to help everybody with his half of the money. Then later on we find out, that this actually was quite the staged robbery. And that's one of my favorite sequences in the film, is that it's not told by an adult, it's told by a child. And they're in school, and this is later on after all these kids know that Anthony and Damien have this money, but they've been bought off to be quiet about it. And that was one thing I actually kind of liked about this movie too, was these kids actually didn't go to anybody and were like, they've got all this money, come hang out. It just ended up kind of being like Anthony bought off maybe like 5 or 6 of his friends, and Damien is not buying anybody off. He's kind of the wallflower in this kind of regard, where he doesn't have a whole lot of friends. So there's a lot of interesting moments with the kids and Anthony and Damien. But I really like when Anthony brings Damien into this back room at school, and Anthony's friend has all these toy cars and starts explaining like how it was the most beautifully staged robbery that the UK had seen in the last couple of years. I think this movie's actually, it's very sweet, it's very funny. It gets me choked up a couple of times. There's a few moments where there's that mom thing in this movie where these two boys don't have their mother, and that's always sad, to see. And in a way, they use it to their advantage everywhere they go. And
our mom's dead. Oh, here, have a cookie.
Anthony's like, if you just tell them that your mom's dead, then you'll get anything. And yeah, they use that to a pretty entertaining extent. I remember seeing this film in theaters because, again, I'm a major Danny Boyle fan. Mm-hmm. And I went and saw it with my dad, and we both really liked the movie. Thought the music was great. The transitions and the way Danny Boyle builds certain scenes are very cool. Like early on in the movie, the kids are running around the house as it's being built.
Yeah, that
which
was
I thought
cool
was really
sequence.
fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and overall, it's like I said already, it's very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of, pay attention, but it's not like you are hanging off every word,
Yeah, with this week we picked kid-centered movies, but it also happened that the protagonist was a little boy who'd lost his mom. And that actually happened coincidentally. So there is that link between our two movies. I
didn't actually put that together. That's right. Billy Elliot. Yeah.
And I love Alex Attell. He carried this whole movie. That child is a brilliant little actor, and he's so sweet. I loved every single conversation he had with a saint. Those were
they were all great.
Absolute favorite parts of the movie.
Nice.
Did Danny Elfman score this movie?
No, he did not.
It sounded so much like a Tim Burton, Danny Elfman movie, especially during that house building scene that you talked about.
Oh yeah.
It's like
there was a lot of very like Edward Scissorhands type of tunage going on.
Completely.
That was by a guy named John Murphy, and he has scored Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He's scored Miami Vice. He scored Kick-Ass, which is interesting. And he did an instrumental track for 28 Days Later and for Sunshine, which are also both Danny Boyle films.
Yeah. Well, at least he has some range, because those scores certainly do not sound anything like this one. Though I do think this one was slightly derivative.
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed the soundtrack for what it was. I thought it was pretty sweet.
I really liked how they wrote the kids. I think it was very realistic, and I think that's true for both films this week, honestly. I think whoever wrote the screenplays did a good job with kids' behavior, how they talk, and these kids are precocious and very sweet. And again, I really do think they carry the movie quite well.
I agree, indeed. I had never seen Alex Attell before. It was his feature film debut. He didn't do a whole lot after this. He did a film called The Water Horse that nobody saw. And I think now Alex Attell has just done a couple of little bit parts in British television series, and that's okay. You know, it's not the end of the world. Maybe that was also his choice, because there are a lot of child actors that will do a movie or two and then not want to continue on.
Most famously, I always think of Peter Ostrom, who was Charlie in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder.
Oh.
And he quit acting really soon after that movie. And there's a ton of child actors who are like, yeah, this was fun. This is definitely not for me. I'm moving on. And I think he actually became like a veterinarian.
Did he really?
I think so, if I'm remembering correctly, yeah.
Interesting. It's like Alex Attell and Lewis McGibbon. Lewis McGibbon, I don't believe I've seen in a whole lot of other movies or TV shows either, but it's always possible. Like, looking at their IMDb now, Lewis McGibbon only did Millions, and that was it. He is not in any other movies, and Millions came out in 2004. So maybe that's a similar thing that happened. You know, it's not like all kid actors are going to be like a Macaulay Culkin or a Leonardo DiCaprio, where they're just going to grow up in front of the world. And maybe that's one of the things that Alex Attell didn't want to do.
Or just like anything else a kid tries, you know, they go out for baseball, they play for a season, they're like, I didn't like this at all.
Very true. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a good way of looking at that as well. But it also kind of sucks, because now we've lost this talent and we don't have any other movies to watch him in, because Millions, like you said, he carries it. I believe the success comes from his performance.
Yes, absolutely.
And in 2004, Danny Boyle had, by the time he had Shallow Grave, Trainspotting, The Beach, A Life Less Ordinary, 28 Days Later, and Sunshine. So then this came out. All those other previous films are R-rated. This is his first PG film up until he did Steve Jobs, which was PG-13. And I gotta be honest, Steve Jobs might be my least favorite Danny Boyle movie. I don't think it's very good. But that's just my opinion. Yeah. Kate Winslet was amazing. Kate Winslet was great. And I believe it was Seth Rogen that was in it too.
Yeah, he was Steve Wozniak, and he was really good, actually.
He was very good. And Fassbender's good too, but just the movie, I don't know, the structure of the movie really fell flat for me. I saw it in theaters, and I remember just halfway through being like, oh, come on, Danny Boyle. Maybe biopics aren't your thing. You know, and it's weird to say, because most movies are, you know, you got to build characters and you got to really accentuate certain things, and I'm not on set with Danny Boyle, so I don't know how exactly he directed that. However, it being a biopic and based off of the book of Steve Jobs, maybe there wasn't a whole lot. And it was a studio film, too. So maybe that could be it also, whereas most Danny Boyle films start out as independently produced, and then they're bought later on for distribution. So I feel like maybe that's what happened with Steve Jobs. I can only hope that's what happened with Steve Jobs.
I mean, saying maybe he doesn't do biopics very well, I would actually argue maybe he doesn't do non-rated R movies very well, because this is a very sweet film. Alex Attell killed it. Very interesting plot. I thought that was new. I always have an affinity for kids that are a little off or a little different and don't have friends. Or Damien seeing Saints was so cute, and his brother at one point called him a loon, and certainly have a lot of empathy for him. But there is a big portion of this movie for me that dragged on pretty badly.
Really?
I loved the beginning of this film. I thought it was fresh and interesting. It was beautifully shot. When they were riding bicycles through that field of yellow flowers, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I loved the end. The last third of this movie is really good and wraps everything up and goes in a couple different directions that I wasn't necessarily expecting, which I appreciated. But the middle part of this movie really dragged on for me, to be totally honest with you.
Interesting.
And I think it has to do with the fact that this movie is very straightforward, as you say. And I think maybe a couple little subplots or little devices to help the pacing of this movie or to help it move along would have been a great addition to the storytelling.
Interesting. I disagree. I never felt that it really dragged on. But, you know, again, everybody's opinion is valid, right?
That's what we always say.
Yes, it is. I can understand why you would say that, because it does kind of like start out pretty fast, like the pacing's good, and then it does kind of slow down, and then it does pick up again.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I don't know. I watching it again this time, I wasn't bored. I haven't watched this film in a long time, and I watched my DVD copy of it. And my wife sat with me and watched actually both of these ones, and she enjoyed both of them. She had seen millions before because I try to turn her on to every Danny Boyle movie that I like. Again, I can understand why you felt that way, but I never felt like I was like, being like, okay, can we move this along? I guess I don't really know where else to go with that other than I'm thrown.
I'm sorry. I didn't. It is a sweet movie. I absolutely would recommend it to others. So I didn't hate it at all.
Oh, that's good.
I probably wouldn't watch it again, but that's just because there's so many others to watch. And for me, the biggest indicator is if I check how much time is left in a movie.
Sure.
If I check how much time, it means that my mind is wandering, that the movie isn't keeping my attention. And for example, Elvis, very long movie, did not check with the time once during that whole movie.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So yeah, but other than that, it was very sweet. Like I said, the actors in it were very well cast, did a very good job, and very unique story. I really like the storyline with the UK transitioning off of the pound to the euro. What a creative way to think of a story. And yes, I agree with you. That robbery scene was so fun. I really enjoyed that scene a lot.
It was pretty bitchin', and they shot that over with 3 cameras, a whole bunch of dolly tracks, and all stuntmen, really. Watching the making of that sequence on the DVD was actually very entertaining, and I have not watched it before. There's several interviews with Danny Boyle throughout the making of. There's like 4 or 5 little clips, and one of them is about the robbery. And it was all done practically. There wasn't anything, super special effect-y going on in there. A lot of stuntmen and a lot of fast-moving cameras. I think they said they shot it over the course of 3 days. The fun thing is, you learn a little bit more about how the money was distributed throughout the robbers, which is cool. Mm-hmm. As Damien and Anthony are having fun with this money, Damien again giving it to the poor, Anthony trying to get him to not do that, there is a moment where they themselves treat themselves to a couple of new gadgets. Like Damien and Anthony get a cell phone that they can talk through video chat with. They buy walkie-talkies. And then as Damien is hanging out outside again after he releases all these doves and stuff, because, again, he wants to do good with his money, which is the sweetest thing about the movie. Mm-hmm. A lot of kids would be like, oh, let me go get the new video game or the new PlayStation console or whatnot, whereas I would probably go and buy like a big-ass fucking TV and a whole bunch of new 4K movies. So Damien releases all these doves and pigeons and whatnot, and there's a guy kind of lurking around along the train track, and he's wearing all black, and he's got a backpack, and Damien just starts asking him, are you poor? And the guy's like, well, I'm poor to an extent, And Damien's like, do you need money? And he goes, what do you mean by need money? He goes, oh, just hang right here. I've got a lot of money, because his brother's calling him on a walkie-talkie. So he goes to grab money for this guy. Later on, we find out that this guy was part of the robbery, and he's looking for his bag of money. One thing I liked finding out about this production was that instead of making cast and crew t-shirts, which, in my opinion, cast and crew t-shirts are one of the best gifts you can get after making a TV show or a movie, because it's, it's a little bit more, I worked on that. But the production decided to donate money to Water Aid to build a well in Africa, which is one of the, I guess, subplots in this film. When we meet Daisy Donovan, she works for a charity that is spreading awareness of poor children and people in Africa and certain parts of Africa that don't have running water, and she explains how certain amount of money can actually pay for running water for a whole month for an African family. And so Damien, also wanting to help others, has a wad of 1,000 pounds. And then later on, he tells his brother that he did, and it's one of my favorite lines in the movie. He goes, what did you bring 1,000 to school for? Don't you see that's a little suspicious? And Damien's like, it's not suspicious, it's unusual. And it's just so sweet, so because cute. Damien's like, it's really not that weird. Like, why can't I have 1,000 pounds to give to somebody that needs it? And that's one thing about Damien that really is just so heartwarming. When they're first in the city, he runs into this young lady that's passing out pamphlets to make people aware of homelessness. And Damien asks her if she's poor. And she says, well, I haven't had a thing to eat all day. And he goes, oh, let me take you over to Pizza Hut. So she goes, can I invite my friends? And he's like, yeah, of course, bring your friends. And then the next shot is Damien and like 7 other people following Damien into Pizza Hut. And they're ordering the entire menu.
Yes.
And of course, Anthony's like, what the fuck is this? Stop spending your money on these people. But Damien just wants to feed the hungry, Like that's the best part of the movies that Damien truly has such a good heart. So in April 2005 is when Millions was released to the U.S. It was released in May of 2005 in the U.K., which is interesting because that's just about a month after the release out here in the U.S. I attribute that maybe to film festivals and certain release dates, maybe even marketing. And it could have also been pushed back on a release. You never know. That happens often with films. So with that, this movie definitely came out over a couple of films that were really killing it in the box office already, and they continued to in April of 2005. And the number one film of April of 2005 is a graphic novel movie that came out with a star-studded cast. Brittany Murphy is in it.
Sin City.
Benicio del Toro. There you go. Yeah. I fucking love that movie. I saw that movie 9 times in theaters.
Whoa!
Oh, yeah. Oh, I loved Sin City so much.
I mean, it's great. Yeah, I agree.
It is. It's really fucking good. If you haven't seen it, check out Sin City. Don't watch A Dame to Kill For. Watch Sin City. Sin City,
Agreed.
the first one, is so fucking good. The number 2 highest-grossing film of April of 2005 was the Matthew McConaughey, Steve Zahn, Penelope Cruz-led Sahara. Yeah. And then
I'm a huge Clive Cussler fan, who's the author of that major series of books. He's written over 20 of them with this character. It's funny that you say it's number 2 for the month because that movie was a disaster in the box office.
It really
critically
was.
panned. The author hated it, so he told all of his readers not to see it. It was, it lost a ton of money. It was a total bomb.
Wow. I did not know any of that about Sahara. I like Sahara.
So do I. I think it's lots of fun, and I thought Steve Zahn did a lot of was really great in that movie.
Oh, hell yeah. No, they all three played off each other very well. The number 3 highest grossing box office film for April was a remake horror film, which I guarantee you haven't seen. It's got Ryan Reynolds and Melissa George, and that is the Amityville Horror. And I thought that was fucking scary. I saw that in theaters, and it scared the hell out of me. And I have the DVD because I really liked that one quite a bit. Number 10 for the month of April 2005 is a family-friendly film starring Vin Diesel. Wonder if you can name it. I think it's his only family-friendly film.
Pacifier?
Yeah, it is. The Pacifier.
Never seen that movie, thankfully.
Neither have I, actually. I did not have any interest in that one whatsoever, but I imagine that Vin Diesel had a lot of fun with it.
Or just got paid.
Yeah. So the domestic box office of 2005, Millions did not hit the top 100, and it's a bit obvious why. I wonder if you can name the highest grossing film of 2005. We actually have not touched on this one, so I'm excited. It's a number 3. Actually, well, yes, it technically is the 3rd, but it's really in timeline, in actual timeline.
Revenge of the
6.
Sith.
Yes, it is Revenge of the Sith. Awful fucking
awful movie. Terrible.
Awful.
What is with the resurgence of love for the prequels that is happening now that in the last year or so? It is those movies are really terrible.
Yeah, they're really not good at all. Especially Hayden Christensen. He's so bad.
Well, he's very bad. He was not good in those films. No hate on him. It was just I think he was just miscast. The writing was not good, and most importantly for me, there was zero chemistry between him and Natalie Portman.
Oh yeah, it was so bad. It's like watching wood talk to wood. And I like Natalie Portman. I really do. I just didn't
you talked
like her
about
in
Black
those
Swan.
Movies. Yeah, it's just nobody was good in those movies. Even Ewan McGregor, like you can tell that he was doing every direction that George Lucas wanted him to do, and just not good at all.
And I'm a big Star Wars fan, and no, those are not good movies.
No, they're not. And I will say that Rogue One is a killer flick.
Love Rogue One. I love The Mandalorian. I haven't finished Obi-Wan yet, so I'll let you know.
Yeah, I got to start Obi-Wan. I do want to watch that, but Mandalorian. I stopped.
Yeah,
that
you
after
stopped
episode
watching
5.
that, right? Yeah.
Yep, I was bored. I just was not into it, and everyone's like, "No, it gets better after that." I'm like, "Yeah, but 5 episodes. It takes that long to get good." No,
no, it was good from the beginning.
No, it wasn't. Number 2 highest grossing of 2005 is the 4th of a third of 8 that we discussed. another UK.
Okay, we've been podcast hosts for long enough that I understood what the hell you just said.
Oh,
because
perfect.
That's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Yes, it is. That was the first Harry Potter film that I saw in theaters, and that's my favorite one because it's the one that turned me on to Harry Potter.
Really?
I think I had seen the first two, but it was on like ABC Family or, just like I wasn't paying attention. I didn't really care. So that was the only Harry Potter movie that I had seen in theaters, and then I didn't see any of the other Harry Potter movies until Deathly Hallows Part 2. My parents were going to go see Deathly Hallows Part 2. I happened to be visiting them. They're like, we were thinking about going to see the final Harry Potter. I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's go. And then when that movie opens with Dumbledore falling, I was like, what the fuck is going on? What the hell happened?
Dude, what did you do to yourself?
I didn't know anything. The thing is,
that is the absolute wrong way to watch a series of movies.
Yeah. Watch 1, 2, 4, and Part 2 of 8. Yeah. It was not the way that I should have done it, but I didn't care.
Hoping that you were going to say, but I read the books, so it was okay.
Oh,
but
no. No, those were not books that I was going to give my time to. Not that they're not good books. They were just so big, and at the time I was not a big reader.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 box office was it contains one of our favorite boys. Steven Spielberg directed, Dakota Fanning.
Oh, Tom Cruise in the War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds,
which was terrible.
It was okay.
Oh, I hate that movie.
It had fun special effects.
No, it was terrible.
I have not watched it in a long, long time.
It did have good special effects, but Dakota Fanning screamed for about an hour and a half of a 2-hour movie. And the whole plot line with his son running over that hill and it all explodes and they finally get to his ex-wife's neighborhood and that's the only neighborhood that survived. I was come on, Spielberg, you can do a sad ending. What the hell?
Definitely, yeah.
The most unrealistic. That movie annoyed the crap out of me, actually. But Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise doing Minority Report. Now that is a good movie.
Perfect. Yeah, that's superior for sure.
Yes.
Number 5 of April highest grossing is, I think it still holds up. It's still pretty funny. Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson in Wedding Crashers.
Oh, hell yeah.
Number 9 for the year. This actually really irritates me because I think this movie is a pile of garbage. It's got Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Oh, God. Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Yeah.
You hate that movie?
I hated it. I thought it was so bad. I also don't really like Angelina Jolie. I've not been like, my gosh, she has blown me away. I also haven't seen Girl Interrupted, which she won the Oscar for. But every time I've seen her in a movie, even The Bone Collector, Taking Lives, a couple other films that she's Tomb Raider. She doesn't have
much range now that you bring that up, actually.
She really doesn't. She's very...
Never thought of that.
Wood against wood. I don't know, just not for me. And I'd like me some Brad Pitt. I just never got into her as an actress.
Yeah, I get that.
She's not the one drawing me to a movie. It's like if she's in it with folks that I like, I likely will see it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I like Johnny Depp, but I didn't see The Tourist. All I also heard was that was a horrendous movie.
It's bad. So. Paul Bettany's in it too, actually.
Is he really?
Talked about him a couple times. Yeah.
Oh wow. And then number 10, highest grossing film of 2005, stars Will Smith and Eva Mendes, and that is Hitch. Yeah, which is a great film. Oh, mm-hmm. Kevin James is also in that one. Mm-hmm. And that does it for the year 2005 and for the film Millions. Directed by Danny Boyle, starring Alex Attell, written by Frank Cottrell Boyce. I hope if anybody does watch it, they let us know what they think. I, again, think it's very sweet, very touching. It's a very easy film to watch. It's 95 minutes. Mm-hmm. You like V said, she was looking at her watch every now and then. That's fine. But I don't feel that it's one of those films that you're like, okay, can we move this along? But everybody's different, and that's what this podcast is all about.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to discussing V's choice now. V, you want to take us away on this one?
I do, thank you very much. I picked the 2000 UK smash success of an independent movie, Billy Elliot.
Yeah, Billy Elliot.
And you'd never seen this movie before.
I had not, no. I remember when it came out, and like most people, I very much turned my nose up at it.
Well, not most people, considering how much money this movie made.
I guess that's true. Yeah, maybe people in my age range.
Yes,
I
think people in your age range at the time because you were a teenager.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is this? There's no way I need to see that movie.
And this week's episode's special because both our movies are being seen with fresh eyes by our co-host, right?
Indeed, they are. Yes.
All right, because I hadn't seen Millions either. Billy Elliot is a treasure of a film. I love this movie. I've seen it not a ton of times, but I have seen it repeatedly, especially if it was ever on HBO. I'd sit down and watch it. Just a really sweet film with a lot of heart and a perfect alignment of all the elements that make a great movie.
Oh, I agree.
Billy Elliot is actually based over the span of 1984 and 85, which I had to look up because they don't actually ever state it, but now that I'm an adult watching this movie, there's a big coal miners' strike, and they mention Margaret Thatcher.
Right.
And that's finally what made me look this up and go, oh yeah, what year is this supposed to take place? And it's 84 and 85, and people who are at all familiar with the UK know that there were a lot of economic hardships throughout the 80s and under Margaret Thatcher. And so it definitely clarified a lot of pieces of this movie around Billy's family and the neighborhood and expectations and the way people talked. It definitely gave me a fuller picture once I knew when this movie was supposed to take place.
I agree, yeah. When it started, I thought maybe it was set around when it was shot.
Me too,
and so it and hairstyles and clothes and everything like that didn't seem out of place for me.
Kind of time agnostic.
Yeah, exactly. So I really thought that it was set during the time it was shot, but I also did the same. I went up and read a little bit of the trivia. I was like, oh, it's set in the 80s. Okay, cool.
The plot of this movie is very straightforward. A young boy is signed up for boxing classes by his father because his father did boxing and his grandfather did boxing, and that's what boys do. And so at this local, kind of like a YMCA, local rec center, he starts going to boxing classes, and I love the trailer of this movie as well. This is a very well done trailer. Definitely watch it. We can post it on social media too, but it's a very sweet trailer, and I love and that's actually what got me interested in the movie back when it came out, because the trailer is so sweet too. And so this boy goes to boxing classes, and he's bouncing around, and you think this movie is about a boy finding his passion and all these things. You're like, oh cool, he's gonna get into boxing and be really good. And he's messing around in the ring, and this little kid that he's facing off against just stands there going, what the hell are you doing? And Billy Elliot's moving around, and the little kid just wham socks him right in the head and drops him. And you're like, okay, Billy Elliot is not going to be this boxing prodigy. And instead he rolls over on the mat and he sees this ballet class going on full of these little girls and goes, huh. And his boxing class finishes, and he walks over and he actually joins them. And he finds,
I like that.
Oh, I love that organic exploration and curiosity that a little kid would have. Billy is 11, and he then starts taking ballet classes, and he continues to take these classes. He loves it. He works very, very hard at it. I love the montage of him practicing. That was so sweet. He even, and there's a part that I'll talk about later about a book that I also loved. And he gets good enough that his teacher recommends he audition for the Royal Ballet School in London. And this is all taking place under the backdrop of a violent miners' strike in northern England. And his dad and his brother are both miners. It's the family trade. And so they're on strike. They are now extremely poor. They are really struggling. And the tension around the miners' strike, even though it's a subplot, I think is very well done and really adds to the overall storytelling of this movie.
I agree. The whole miners' strike thing was pretty intense, especially when his brother starts running through all those different apartments later on in the movie.
And fighting with the cops.
Oh, yeah. I actually really liked the way that a few of the older folk were holding the doors open for him. I thought that was great. They're like, some of the locals are definitely on the side of the miners, and then there's definitely the locals that are not on the side of the miners. So there's the whole picket line crossing thing at the supermarket when they confront one of the other guys. I thought that was interesting. But like you were saying earlier, the way that Billy just kind of wanders into this ballet class, and Mrs. Wilkinson, played by Julie Walters, she just like she doesn't think twice about it. She's just like, oh, you want to come on in? Jump on in. And he's not paying for this, so like there's no financial gain for her at all. She just allows him to jump in there, and he's the tallest one in there, so his head is like up over all these little girls' shoulders, and a lot of the dancing that he was doing looks easy, but it's not.
Which actually is a perfect example of a great dancer. When they make dancing look easy, you know they're good.
Yeah. And I'm sure you know about that, but Jamie Bell had been a professional dancer well, not necessarily professional, but he had been taking dance classes.
Since he was 6?
Since he was, so 5 years at least before he got cast in this movie, he was doing these pliés and these insane moves. And watching this movie made me... My wife and I recently watched another Gene Kelly movie with Frank Sinatra called Take Me Out to the Ballgame, and there are some great dance sequences in it. And one of my all-time favorite dance sequences of any film from the 40s to the 70s is in Singin' in the Rain when they do Moses Supposes. And it's Gene Kelly and Donald O'Connor, and they are doing a just insane dance sequence. And for many years, I thought that maybe I could do that. If I just watched it enough times, I could mimic it. Nope, not a fucking chance in hell. There's no way. So watching Billy Elliot, Jamie Bell at 11 years old, running around this ballet studio, doing these crazy, almost Irish tap dancings into
jigs.
Pliés, into, all this dancing is like, oh, I could totally run around my living room doing all that kind of stuff. No, not going to look as graceful.
And you'll probably hit your shin on the couch.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. I'll slam into something and walk away with multiple bruises. There's no question about it.
Yes, and Jamie Bell, as you said, he'd been dancing for a lot of years. He was the only person, I think, who could play Billy Elliot in this movie so well. He won out over 2,000 boys who auditioned for this movie.
2,000? My gosh.
And Julie Walters, who I love. She's such a battle axe in this movie. What a just badass woman who's smoking and doesn't give two shits. I loved her in this movie. She's great. She's Mrs. Weasley from all of the Harry Potter's movies.
I was going to say, she really did look familiar.
Yeah, that's
why she looks familiar.
Absolutely recognize her. And she was also in Mamma Mia as one of Meryl Streep's friends, Rosie.
Oh, so. I never saw the Mamma Mia movies.
Okay. I didn't see the second one. I saw the first one. Mm-hmm. And they're great in it. So those are the two main people that I recognize. And funny you bring up Gene Kelly because Fred Astaire is mentioned in the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
And you actually see a very short clip of one of his movies. And it actually reminded me of my grandfather who worked in the film industry. And he was a backup dancer on several Fred Astaire movies.
No way.
Yeah. He moved to LA very, very early on in Hollywood's history, and he had a really, really interesting life and was a really cool guy and had some great stories about Hollywood for me, so it was really cool.
That's badass.
Yeah. I
did like the mention of Fred Astaire, and I thought it was great when Billy goes to Mrs. Wilkinson's house, and her husband is sitting in the chair, and he goes, "So you're our local Gene Kelly, are you?" Or something like that. I thought that was great. Like, hey, all right, bringing some Gene Kelly into this.
Yep.
I'm a big Gene Kelly fan. I'll watch all the Gene Kelly movies all day long if I could. I'm a big fan.
I heard he was a giant prick, though.
Oh, yeah, he was. That's all I've read, too. He was a giant asshole, but he was a perfectionist. So, you take that kind of hand in hand in a way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Debbie Reynolds has said some intense things about him, but she also has said some great things about him. So, it goes hand in hand. But it's interesting, too, because Gene Kelly comes, you hear that reputation about him, but everybody loved him so much because he really was a talent. Mm-hmm. But then you look at Fred Astaire, and there's not like one shred of like bad-mouthing Fred Astaire at all.
Right.
And same with like Jimmy Stewart or Cary Grant, many actors. I think it comes from Gene Kelly as a director as well, because he directed a lot of the movies that he was in as a co-director or a standalone director. Again, I really admire the way that the guy looked like he's just walking on fucking air. It's nuts.
Yes, he was
and
very
that's kind of how
live.
I kind of perceived Jamie Bell that way when watching the movie. And I didn't read any trivia until after the movie because I had never seen this, so I didn't want to write any notes down. I just wanted to immerse myself. And I remember texting you like, "Why didn't you warn me that I was going to be on the verge of tears throughout this entire fucking movie?" Like I literally like sitting there every time like a moment happens that's just like uplifting. You're just like, all right, nope, no tears dropping today. And my wife was like sitting next to me watching me watch this movie. She's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah. The tender moments of this movie, the uplifting moments of this movie never get old for me. And the crescendo that is the ending of this movie is perfection, and I cry every fucking time.
Nice. I didn't cry at the end. I think
oh my God, how do you not cry at the end?
I know it would have been a happy tear moment, but yeah,
yeah, it's definitely.
I really liked the last like 5 minutes of the movie like a lot, like really really cool. And the one scene though that got me the most was when he brings the letter his mom wrote him to Mrs. Wilkinson, and he's the one like I just was like, oh my gosh.
That is my audio clip for this week. One of my favorite scenes. So good.
Yeah.
What's that? It's a letter. I can see it's a letter. It's me mum's. She wrote it for when I was 18, but I opened it. Here. To my son, Billy. Dear Billy, I know it must seem like a distant memory to you, which is probably a good thing. It will have been a long time, and I will have missed seeing you grow, missed you crying, and laughing, and shouting. And I will have missed telling you off. But please know that I was always there. With you through everything. With you through everything. I always will be. And I am proud to have known you. And I'm proud that you were mine. Always be yourself. I love you forever. Mum. She must have been a very special woman, your mother. She was just me, Mum.
And that is the moment when I first watched this movie that I realized how good of an actor Jamie Bell was.
Yeah.
Because
at 11 years old.
There's a subtlety to acting that the best actors do not overdo it, and they can be still. Mm-hmm. And God, he was so good in that scene. And you can recognize him from, funny enough, Rocket Man. He's in Rocket Man.
Yeah. Is he really?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
He is Bernie Taupin, who is Elton John's longtime collaborator and co-songwriter.
No kidding.
He's always been behind the scenes with Elton John. They are longtime friends, and he was just so great and such a wonderful compliment to Taron Egerton in Rocket Man. They were fantastic partners in the movie as well. I loved it.
Very cool. Now I'm even more interested in Rocket Man.
Great. I'm so excited to hear that. I am happy and excited to have that movie on our list now.
Me too.
He's also been in some stinkers, not gonna lie.
Like what?
God. Well, he was in Jumper, speaking of Hayden Christensen.
I actually never saw Jumper.
It had potential. It was an interesting storyline, and they just kind of botched the script a bit. It had potential. He was in Snowpiercer, which was good.
Snowpiercer was okay.
He was in the newest Fantastic Four film, which is one of the worst comic book movies I've ever seen in my entire life, which is saying something because I've seen almost all of them, including like Spawn and The Shadow and the 90s comic book movies.
Whoa. Don't throw Spawn in there.
John Leguizamo was awesome in that.
No, Spawn
his character, the clown, is so gross.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. That whole character. Oh, gross. Yeah. I really like Spawn.
I'm not surprised. It's dark and twisted. It's right up your alley.
It is.
So yeah.
But hold on. Hold on. Okay. So Spawn. What?
Fantastic
Which
Four.
Which is that the one with
Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Kate
okay.
Mara, who he's now married to.
I didn't see it.
Good. I'm glad. Nobody should have seen that movie. It was so fucking awful. Oh
Gotcha.
my god. So
I remember
bad.
that one. Yeah. When you said Miles Teller, I remembered that Fantastic Four, but I never saw it.
Yeah, it was terrible. And Toby Kebbell, who is Johnny Quid in Rock and Rolla, is in that Fantastic Four. He plays Dr.
Really?
Doom. Yeah. God, that movie's so
Oh, interesting.
lastly, about Jamie Bell, funny enough, when I was looking up his credits, he is in pre-production for a movie called Fred and Ginger, where he plays Fred Astaire.
Oh, wow.
Tie back. I love it. Love it.
That should be good.
Yeah, I'm really excited for
since
that.
we know that he can dance, has been dancing since he was a child.
That's right. And
that's awesome.
Since not a ton of recognizable actors in this movie, doesn't mean they aren't great in every role they're in, but I will talk a little bit more about the trivia and also the behind-the-scenes crew of this movie. First and foremost being Stephen Daldry, who is a great UK director. He has done The Hours, The Reader with Kate Winslet. Have you seen The Reader?
Yeah, I have seen The Reader.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on the trailers for The Reader, actually.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm,
and he's also directed 4 episodes of The Crown, which is a great show.
Ah.
The writer of this movie, Lee Hall, has also done War Horse, which was a good Steven Spielberg movie.
I did like War Horse.
He wrote Rocket Man, which I actually didn't know before looking it up.
No way.
Which is awesome. Yeah,
Hell yeah. This is all
organically coming together. I love it.
Wow. That's badass.
I love it. However, he also wrote the screenplay for Cats. So I'll forgive him for that because Billy Elliot's so good and so is Rocket Man.
Never bothered with Cats. The trailer freaked
not.
me the F out.
Oh my
God, no. Once I saw that James Corbin was in or whatever the fuck his name is, like, no, I'm not going to watch that.
God, that guy is not a nice person in any sense of the word.
I've heard, yeah.
Ugh, no, he's not a nice person.
It's really shitty when they like come off as like the coolest people on the planet.
Right? And like so
really
nice
lame.
and approachable, and in real life they're just giant egotistical jerks.
Yeah.
It's a bummer. So a couple scenes of this movie, I love every minute of this movie, but I loved one of the reasons why I looked up the year. First of all, because Margaret Thatcher's name was thrown out there, and now as an adult, I'm like, oh yeah, I made that connection. Let me see what year this is supposed to be. But also because when Billy starts becoming really interested in ballet, he goes to find a book on ballet. He walks to his local bookmobile, which gave me so many nostalgic memories. I grew up so you don't know what a bookmobile is?
I guess not.
Oh, okay. So I grew up in a super small town that did not have a local library. So instead, the neighboring town, which was much bigger, that was over 30 minutes away, over the hill, their library would drive a big old it's basically the size of a food truck over the hill, and they open it up, and it's full of books.
Oh, cool.
And you have a library card with them. And as a kid, I loved going there so much. It was such a special trip to find all these books because, growing up in the 80s and 90s, you didn't have the internet. We read a lot, and
oh yeah,
and that's where we got a lot of information. And so, yes, bookmobiles were so great for small towns. That's how small towns got a lot of before lending libraries and books on the corner were a thing in neighborhoods. So the fact that they had a bookmobile in this movie I thought was very nostalgic for me. I really enjoyed that scene.
Nice.
And Swan Lake plays a pretty prominent role in this film. There are several nods to Swan Lake that, again, helps build towards the climax of this movie, including, which I thought was really sweet, and this is the first time I'd actually caught it, the swan wallpaper on that little girl's bedroom when Billy goes to visit Mrs. Wilkinson. Her daughter's bedroom had the swans on the wallpaper. I thought that was so cute and such a good nod. And Tchaikovsky wrote Swan Lake. I've seen the ballet performance. of Swan Lake. Highly recommend it. It's a beautiful ballet. The music is incredible. It's one of my favorite pieces of music. And Tchaikovsky is really well known because he also wrote The Nutcracker and several other very well-known ballets. So I loved that the Swan Lake overture was also in this movie.
Definitely. And I was sitting there watching it last night with my wife, and I'm hearing the Swan Lake music, and I go to her, I'm like, oh, that's from Black Swan. She goes, yeah. And I was like, that's really cool. That's awesome. I mean, granted, I knew that Black Swan was a decade plus after Billy Elliot, but she goes, well, the ballet's called Swan Lake. I was like, thank you. I don't know why I thought the ballet was called Black Swan.
Yeah, because
I love that
movie.
fucking movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a great movie.
I am certainly not the only person who thinks this movie is great, and I love the fact that you enjoyed it too. This movie was extremely independent. It had a budget of only $5 million, but it was a darling in every sense of the word. It made $22 million in the United States and $109 million worldwide gross.
Holy shit. Wow.
22 times its budget it got back.
That is pretty badass. Congrats to everybody on that.
Right? And it is the most award-heavy movie I've picked so far in this podcast as well. It won a shit ton of awards. It was in special selection for Sundance, Toronto Film Festival, a ton of film festivals it was special selection, same with Cannes. It was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress in a Supporting Role with Julie Walters, Best Director, Best Writing. It won a ton of BAFTA awards, which is the UK version of the Oscars for anybody who is unfamiliar. And it won for Best British Film. Jamie Bell won for Best Actor. Julie Walters won for Best Actress. It did really well all over. Everybody loved this movie in the year 2000.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, though?
It is the only movie of the year 2000 not nominated for Best Picture when it had a Best Director nomination. Good call out.
Damn. Wow.
Now, I'm going to turn our game a little bit on its head.
Okay.
Can you guess the Best Picture winner from the year 2000?
Ooh. Gladiator?
Damn, I didn't even give you a hint.
Yes. Yeah, no hint. Yeah, that's right. You didn't. Look at that.
Nicely done.
Gladiator.
Yes. And a piece of trivia that I think you'll really like is cinematographer Brian Tufano deliberately shot the mining village in a claustrophobic manner with really tight shots to emphasize how close-knit the community was, and how frustrating it could be for a creative person like Billy. And you can tell he's very frustrated a lot of the movie, and the way he expresses himself through dance when he's really, really pissed in those alleys.
Oh, yeah.
I think is such a authentic expression of emotion in so many ways.
I really like the scene when we meet Billy and he's like doing the whole like tapping on the floor, and then he gets up and he runs around like his little backyard and he's like slamming himself against the brick walls.
Yes, when he's really
going back and
angry.
Forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that sequence.
The little cubicle, yeah. And that was a great sequence. And then the cinematographer then opened up the field of focus whenever there was a dance scene to show how liberating dancing was for Billy. And I just love those subtle artistic decisions that maybe a lot of people don't overtly notice, but still add to the storytelling. And I thought that was, I just love reading that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I didn't know that. The cinematography is great in Billy Elliot too. It's really nice. It's very clean. But yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, and one of the last pieces of trivia I'll mention is because this movie was such a hit, I mean, just monster hit, as I've discussed. They made a musical of this movie, and which hit the West End in 2005, and a Broadway version of this movie. Now, both the West End, which is basically the London, UK's version of Broadway, the West End and the Broadway production costs more than the budget of this movie. They both had higher productions. The Broadway production cost $18 million to make.
Damn.
And both of those were wildly successful. They have each had over 1,000 shows, I think. They've all been successes financially and also with awards. And the Broadway version won the Tony for Best Musical in 2009.
Oh, very cool.
Now, a very interesting piece of trivia is the West End musical of this movie, which is in London, looked to cast a boy to play Billy Elliot. So there was a little boy in England who was talent spotted because he was in a little dance troupe and brought on to audition for Billy Elliot and won the role, and in 2008 started playing the lead role of Billy Elliot on the West End as the musical version. He is now a famous superhero for Marvel.
Oh, gosh. Wait. Was it Tom Holland?
Yes! It was Tom Holland!
No shit!
Yes!
Really?
He's an incredible dancer.
Damn.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you look online, there's a very, very cute now old, but he's still a young guy, but about 10 years ago, interview with Tom Holland, and he's this cute little munchkin. Oh my God, it's adorable. So yeah, he was Billy Elliot, and that's really how he's got, that was his big break to getting into the industry itself, yeah.
Very cool. Well, congrats to Tom Holland on that. He has not always been in front of a green screen. That's good to know.
Yeah, he can act, I swear.
Yeah.
Which I actually think it takes a lot of talent to act in front of a green screen or in front of a tennis ball that you're supposed to picture as some big villain.
Yeah, I can do it.
Similar to... I'm just...
Probably not. No, I probably can't do it.
Can you do it as well as your dancing?
Oh, wow. Might be a little bit better than my dancing.
Okay. This movie is available on Starz. If anybody has a subscription to Starz. Otherwise, you can rent it on any of the streaming services for $3.99. Highly recommend this film. It's very sweet.
And would you watch this with your grandma, V?
I would. I would watch this with anyone, especially my two nieces, who I think actually one of them especially, who is very artistic. She's a very talented singer, and she's been in choir for years. She especially would love this movie, but I think they both would enjoy it.
Awesome. I would watch it with my grandmother too.
Yeah,
this movie.
It's so sweet. And I love that, because we talked a couple episodes about Hollywood injecting like melodrama into a movie completely unnecessarily and making it unrealistic. Right. I love the fact that they did not do it in this movie. There was no bullshit drama that they threw in to make more tension or whatever. I love the fact that it wasn't heavy-handed.
Exactly, yeah. The whole, I liked the inclusion of the grandmother, and the one scene where she hugs Billy was very sweet. Mm-hmm. That moment was nice. Yeah,
and so I'm really glad you enjoyed it, and I hope other people can give it a watch.
I imagine they will, because it is a great film. Very good movie.
So that about wraps it up for our kids-themed episode, and I will tell you that I'm very excited that this is the first episode that my nieces will be listening to.
Oh, wonderful.
So Jillian and Ainsley, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I apologize for our cussing.
I'm sure they've heard it before.
Yeah, thankfully not too much by me. I'm very, very good about not cursing in front of children, even though I do curse a lot in my life.
Yes.
I'm good about holding back, so I pride myself on not cursing in front of them specifically.
Awesome.
Yeah, and if this was your first episode, thanks for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed it. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much for coming back every week. Please rate, review, and subscribe. It is so important. We need those reviews, especially early in the early days of a podcast. If you've been planning on doing it, or if you're not sure what to write, just a couple sentences will help, and please get around to doing that. We do really appreciate it. And again, it's so important. You can find us on all social media at Movies You Miss Pod, and as well as Gmail. If you have any suggestions for movies we should cover, it's moviesyoumisspod@gmail.com.
Indeed. Please do send us some recommendations.
And next week, we are getting back into more adult movies, and it is a theme with one of your all-time favorite actors, so I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah.
I picked Inside Man, which is a Spike Lee joint with Denzel Washington, Clive Owen, who is the actor we are referring to, and just a villain in Jodie Foster. God, I love when she's the villain in a movie.
That's right. I forgot Jodie Foster was in Inside Man.
Oh,
I completely forgot that.
Politically evil. Oh, she's so good in that movie.
Yeah, definitely. And oddly enough, Denzel and Clive Owen are two of my top favorite actors, so it's going to be a fun episode.
That's right, but Denzel as well. We had talked about that 2 episodes
Yeah.
ago. And The Inside Man is available on HBO Max. So if you have HBO,
perfect.
you can stream it pretty easily. Otherwise, yeah, you can rent it on other streaming platforms for $3.99.
Oddly enough, Inside Man is one of the films that I do not own, and that is upsetting to me that I don't own Inside Man.
You should definitely own it.
I absolutely should. I don't know why I don't. It's got two of my favorite guys, and I love Spike Lee movies.
And and it's good.
Yeah, and it's fucking good. I'm going with I think this is my favorite Clive Owen film that I'm going to do. I'm very excited to get into my film because I saw it in theaters 3 times, and I was just blown away by the trailer and loved that Clive Owen was in it. We got Julianne Moore. We got Michael Caine. It is based off a novel of the same name, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, Children of Men.
One of my all-time favorite opening sequences in a film.
Oh, gosh, this movie is such a phenomenal film.
Yes.
And if you do not own the DVD like I do, you can rent it on Apple TV or on Amazon Prime Video for $3.99.
Great. I'm very excited for next week. Those are great movies.
Me too.
All right, so that about wraps us up. Thank you again so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as we did. And we like to end with film is a form of art, and in art, every opinion is valid, except if you think
Jane Campion deserved the Best Director Oscar this year.
Oh, God, I totally agree with you.
Horrible loss to anybody else that was nominated. Anybody but her. My God. Such a pretentious woman. I can't stand listening to her interviews.
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as say anyone but her, but at the same time, I was extremely disappointed in comments that she made, not just in interviews, but at the Oscars themselves. Yeah. Her thank you speech was really shocking, to be totally honest with you. I couldn't believe the things she said. I was like, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, I don't think she knew what she was doing. Because she made Power of the Dog, and that movie sucks.
Yeah, you hate that movie. And that is John's opinion this week. Thanks again, and hope you tune in next week.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.